Welcome back to the Jungle Fever podcast. I'm Ethan Sargent. Aiden Crowley is alongside me as always, and we have football to actually talk about. We saw the boys in pads this time last week, or a little bit earlier last week, as the Bengals faced off with the Eagles. The Eagles did win 34 to 27. The Bengals have actually lost seven preseason games in a row. Not that it really matters all that much. I
Yeah.
mean, remember when the Ravens won, what, 18 preseason games in a row? And guess what that counted for? So, it
Bang.
doesn't really matter that they lost, but there are plenty of lessons to take away from this matchup. We're going to dive into this game, take a look at the good and the bad because there was a lot of both of those things. They've also got a game coming up this time next week. They are in Washington. I think we might push back the show a day so that we could give you our reactions from Washington. They're on Monday night of next preseason. It'll be nationally televised Monday Night Football. Joe Buck, Troy Aikman will be on the call. Expecting a lot of starters again, expecting a lot of Bengals to play. Lots of injury updates. Some guys coming back, some guys hitting the IR. We'll have to break that down as well. So let's start off with Philadelphia. Let's start off with this matchup, 34 to 27. And let's start with the negatives. I think it's better to end with the positives and end what we're talking about on a positive note. And there are plenty of positives. We'll get to that in a second. The Bengals first team defense got absolutely shredded by Tanner McKee. I think that's the
Yeah.
first thing we have to discuss. Tanner McKee, by the way, full hat off to Tanner McKee. Played a fantastic game. 20 out of 25, 252 yards, two touchdowns. Looked the part of a guy that could start, right, at a high level. And I'm sure some teams might be calling should some starters get hurt based on the way he played in that matchup. But let's focus on our guys. I mean, it was the same issues. It was the same issues that permeated last year. And I think that's what raises the most red flags for Bengals fans across the country is they see what we saw last year in every game, which was, oh, Joe Burrow goes down the field and scores, which is exactly what happened in this game. And then the defense gives up a long touchdown or a long play or a sustained drive. It was a combination of bad, and it was the same issues and the same problem. And it happened again multiple times in Philadelphia against complete backups. I think that's the most concerning part. No Jalen Hurts, no AJ Brown, no Devontae Smith, no Saquon Barkley. The majority of that vaunted offensive line did not play, and they marched down the field and scored.
Will
Help,
Shipley was
help me,
breaking
help
off
me out
40
here.
yard runs. I can't. I can't. Because I think I've kind of made it pretty clear. If not, I've hit it a little bit. I'm a little pessimistic. I think more than the average Bengal fan going into this year. And unfortunately, this preseason game didn't do much in the way of easing those concerns, I guess. I mean, the team, and I know like everybody will be like, oh, it's just a preseason game. But I just think, like you mentioned, it's how they looked, and it was the exact same thing as last year. I mean, I just think of that first drive and whatever that was, like a 40-yard run or whatever it was,
Yeah, it was Will
probably maybe
Shipley.
more.
Yep.
It was one-on-one in the hole. Logan Wilson sprinting down. He tries to cut inside for some reason. The pulling guard, I think it was, literally just moves Wilson to the side. You could drive a semi truck through the hole that opened up there. Yeah, Will Shipley broke it off for 40 yards. As a team, they gave up 430 yards of total offense. Like, it didn't matter if it was Tanner McKee, the backup, or even you or I playing quarterback. I mean, people were open. The secondary, and I know CTB, I know Dax Hill didn't play. I know those guys weren't in the lineup, but still, you have guys who they expect to play real snaps for this team coming up in the game. DJ Turner, I'm kind of looking at you, and some other guys who we'll get into the injury concerns, but some guys who are gonna have to step up as well. And they didn't look the part. DJ Ivy made some boneheaded plays. I know he was having a pretty good camp, but he looked lost at times. He had a couple stupid penalties as well. It was so frustrating. I felt like I was watching every game last year.
Yep.
Because we'll get to it in a minute. The offense, which I don't think shocked anybody, looked great. I mean, shocker. Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, and Jamar looked pretty good against backups. Like, I don't think that's really shocking. And I don't think it's really shocking that, you don't make any improvements to this defense at all. You don't get substantially better at any position. And then guess what? You roll the same group out there and the same stuff happens. Like, That's my part that just frustrates me so much is that I think a lot of this Bengals front office thought that these guys who didn't play up to their standard last year would take these massive leaps, and Al Golden was going to be this guy who'd come in and fix everything when the problems are still very much there and they're staring you right in the face.
Yep.
It's
Yep.
insane. I hope stuff gets figured out soon. But based off of what we saw, I don't think is going to get much better. I don't think that this is going to be a defense that's going to go out and, look like the 85 Bears. I never thought anybody who really thought that that was going to be the case. But still, there's a lot of people who thought that this defense would be much improved. And so far, it just hasn't looked that way.
Yeah, and I mean, the biggest concern for me, right? And again, the thing about preseason results is that you can take them with a grain of salt one way or the other, right? You can doom it, right, and say, oh man, and look, I'm not trying to downplay the concern at all. I am very much just as concerned. But you can also say to the same point that these are very vanilla concepts. They didn't necessarily like, and this is a thing across preseason, they don't necessarily prepare for an opponent when you're preparing in the preseason. You're more just focused on yourself here. So there is a lot that can be fixed, and luckily they have a couple weeks to figure that out. And Philadelphia's offensive scheme, shocker, it's pretty good, right? They won the Super Bowl last year. So the big thing with me and the biggest concern that I have is the personnel rather than the scheme. I still trust Al Golden. I think that he can fix some of the issues that the Bengals defense had last year. He's not a miracle worker or a god. He can't fix everything. But I think there are little things that he's going to tune up that are going to help this defense be better. My big concern is that the starting defense did not seem to follow his tutelage on the field. And again, when we get to the positives, there are some defenders yesterday on Thursday that really impressed me, and I'm going to get to that in a little bit. But there were some other defenders, a couple of guys Aiden just mentioned, that really concerned me. And the first guy at the top of my list right now is DJ Turner. This is a guy that is expected to start at CB2 early this year. You think about week one, right? Obviously, Jerry Jeudy is more likely than not the Browns wide receiver one, right? He will get those outside reps. It's probably going to be Cedric Tillman at wide receiver two. Cedric Tillman is a decent player. He's not a superstar by any means. If DJ Turner plays the way he's playing, Cedric Tillman's going to have 9 catches for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns, and the Bengals are going to lose the game, right? Because that if this it feels like what DJ Turner is doing is he's relying too much on I'm 4 too fast, right? Like it feels like he is kind of internally thinking, oh, I can make up for everything with speed, when at the NFL level that's not going to work, right? Guys are too good at route running. Guys are too good in the contested catch, which was the it killed the Bengals against Philadelphia. Johnny Wilson, the former wide receiver at Florida State. Now he's kind of like a wide receiver tight end hybrid.
Yeah.
Just, I mean, a number of contested catches
Yeah.
against Ivy, against Turner. And
Part of
right
that's
now,
just his
right,
size. Like Turner is kind of an undersized guy.
it
And
is, yeah. And
Johnny
look, you
Wilson
can't,
is, I mean, he's 6'7", he's huge, you know what I mean?
yeah,
So
he's big. And
like
you can't grow, right? Like
right,
TJ Turner
right.
can't snap his fingers and eat magic beans and grow. But he can be better in terms of positioning, right? And that's where I think that's where the secondary can stand to improve, right? And again, with the injuries, right? CTB is on his way back, so is Dax Hill. The secondary is going to get better with those two guys back in the fold. But you need to be more consistent in terms of not letting things like what happened on Thursday happen, right? And that's my concern. Let's talk a little bit more about the positives now, because there are a lot of players that I want to highlight that I really like their performance. Actually, scratch that. There's one more player we have to talk about on the negative side before we get to the positives. And trust me, there are plenty. We have to flip over to the offense. Right guard is a major problem, and his name is
Yeah.
Lucas Patrick.
Does that shock
This
you? Does that shock you, Ethan?
no, it doesn't. And
I don't think it shocks many people.
we're not pariahs. We don't pretend to be, magic. I've referenced that a lot today for some reason, but we don't pretend to be anything we're not. We both have said that Lucas Patrick is going to be an issue on this line, and lo and behold, against a backup Eagles line. To be fair, again, and we're going to talk about this in a second. Dylan Fairchild played pretty well, I thought, in his NFL debut. But again, an offensive line is only as good as its weakest link. And we've seen this happen to the Bengals in the past. And it's if the right guard caves in, think about if they played Philadelphia at full strength and Jalen Carter is in there in the middle, right?
That's
Joe
food.
Burrow would have been in trouble in that backfield,
It's an
right?
understatement.
Think about if they're in Cleveland week one. Perfect example. I love bringing it up. Think about Mason Graham, freshly off of Michigan, plotted right there in the middle of that defensive line, and he eats a double team. And guess who's coming off the edge one on one? One of the best in the game, Myles Garrett. So Lucas Patrick just did not look good, flat out, right? He was beaten a couple times by backups in terms of he got beat pretty bad a couple times on swim moves. The pocket didn't really hold up super well on that side because of him, and it's forcing Amarius Mims to do a lot more, right? You want Amarius Mims to only be focused on that outside guy, and usually he will be. And again, like I said, an offensive line is only as good as its weakest link, and you can't do anything if your right guard gets beat, that's still a guy at the quarterback. Your tackles could be perfect. Your center could be blocking, right? Your left guard could be doing well. And if the right guard gets beat, Joe Burrow's in trouble regardless, even if everybody else played well.
Yeah, and Burrow made some incredible throws with hands in his face. I mean, that's just
Hmm.
what he does. I think about specifically that out to Jamar. I believe it was like 3rd and 14, or it was 3rd and long, for sure. But a guy got home, and it's a good thing number 9 is number 9, because with a hand in his face, he threw an absolute dime on that out to Jamar, got the first down, and then even the touchdown to Jamar. I know they zeroed Burrow there on that play. So there was a free rusher as is. But I just, in the 2 drives that Burrow played, I felt like he was kind of under some duress. And again, it's just like they have these glaring problems. And then I feel like they act surprised when, the problems kind of rear their ugly head. And it showed in this weekend, because now that they're trying to move Jalen Rivers to guard and trying him some snaps out there just to see how that works out. They're moving Cody Ford back out to kind of that swing tackle position as a result, because Cody Ford didn't look that great as the second string guard coming into play. And it's like they're
And
just
he was playing
just
meaningful
throwing
snaps
stuff at
first
a
game.
wall and seeing what sticks right now. And that's ridiculous
And I mean,
to
look,
do.
that is the point of the preseason, but it shouldn't be something we're doing in preseason. This should have been addressed and evaluated in February, in March, in
Right.
April when you're leading up to the draft. And yes, they clearly knew that it was a need because they drafted 2 guys for that position. But like it just doesn't make sense to me, right?
No.
And I think we're in agreement on this. I don't, what the game plan was or is. We still don't know. We still don't know. And again, I mean, I don't know. I think Rivers is a long-term guard. I don't think he's not really, he's too stiff to be a tackle, in my opinion. I think he does have a future at guard. He's raw, though. And expecting to put 2 rookies in at your left and right guard spots and expecting great results is like putting an airplane with no fuel on the runway and expecting to go from New York to LA. Like it's not going to work. It's not going to work. So, it's an ongoing situation. We'll continue to see who gets those starting reps in camp. It's interesting to see, and this is a note I'll say before we get into the positives. There were a lot of, and this has happened over the last couple days in camp, a lot of rotational guys are getting reps with ones. We didn't see this a lot in the past. Howard Cross, undrafted free agent,
Yeah.
got reps with the ones.
Had a
PJ
couple nice
Jules,
plays.
yeah,
Um,
PJ Jules had an interception yesterday off of Jake Browning, like a fourth string, fifth string corner, was getting reps with the ones. So, you know, interesting to see other guys get opportunities. On one hand, it's good, but on the other hand, it's like, well, if they're getting opportunities, who are they demoting, right? So, again, it's all a give and take. But let's get to the positives. Let's talk a little bit more positively. And let's start, since we're on the topic of the line, let's start with Dylan Fairchild. I really thought that he stepped up to the plate in his first official NFL action. The biggest applause and praise of him so far through this process is that he's a mauler, right? Is that he just gets up and is one of those guys that, Will Campbell had that famous quote right after the draft where he was like, yeah, I don't want my quarterback. I'm going to put my life on the line to protect my quarterback. And those are the guys you want on your offensive line. Fairchild embodied that in his first couple of NFL snaps. didn't allow much pressure, had a, I believe, an 86 PFF grade, which again, you can take PFF grades however you want. Pretty good for a rookie in his first start, in my opinion. I watched the film back on him. He did a good job picking up did a really good job picking up stunts. He did a really good, that's not an easy thing to do as a rookie in the NFL to pick up a stunt coming in off the backside and having to swap rushers like that. He did a really good job at picking that up. And again, he kept Joe Burrow clean, right? To his, again, like I said, go back to that, some of the weakest link point. He did his job, right? He kept Joe Burrow clean on his end of the line. What'd you make of Dylan Fairchild's performance?
Yeah, I think it's kind of cliche to say this, but I think he looked the part out there. Like he just kind of looked like he belonged. And for a third round rookie, I think that says something. Like he didn't look overwhelmed, kind of what you were mentioning. Like Philadelphia will throw some stuff at you, and maybe he did look lost from time to time, but I think his recovery was pretty well. And then I think some of his best reps were actually in run blocking. Some of those nice runs that we saw from Chase Brown on early downs, I think, were attributed to that side of the line and just the push that he was able to get off the start, which I think is a part that the Bengals have historically, and especially in these last couple of years, have really struggled with. Is that kind of like power smash mouth running game. And it seems like Fairchild can give you a little bit of edge so far. I did think he looked really good out there, which is nice because they needed him to. Obviously, he's been running with the ones all camp, so the Bengals saw something that they liked in him pretty early on, and I think he's just kind of proven them right so far, which is good to see, especially
Yeah.
against a line that desperately needs it.
That was
That
exactly
he
what I was going to
takes
say. It's
the hand
good and
out.
it's huge. They
Yeah,
need a guy to like look, you don't want to have two battles, right? And
right.
and Phil Fairchild has absolutely kind of staked his claim and absolutely locked down that left guard spot. So
Yeah, I
hopefully
believe
he can continue to, what was that?
I was just gonna say, I believe Duke Tobin, in the interview during
Yes.
during the broadcast, he said about Fairchild, he said, "quote It's his job to lose." So it seems like
Yeah,
you can pretty much pencil him in week
I
one,
think you can.
unless something major happens.
Exa-
But
yeah, I think you can, barring somebody, I think, just way outperforming him. I think it is his job, and I don't see that happening with the other guys that are in that room.
another rookie
Offensively,
looked
I
good.
liked.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no,
I,
no, no. I
I was just
think,
gonna, if we want to transition, I think another rookie looked really good, and again, this is somebody who made a lot of noise this offseason, and we were frustrated with him, but I think you and I both said now that he's officially a Bengal and in stripes, we want to see him succeed, and he went out there and I think he looked really good. That was Shamar Stewart. I thought that he had a couple reps where obviously he got into the backfield, he had that tackle for loss that stuck out a little bit. He generated some pressure, and maybe this is more of an indictment of Joseph Osai and Miles Murphy, but I think he, by and large, looked like the Bengals, assuming Trey Hendrickson comes back, he by and large looked like the Bengals' second best pass rusher,
yeah,
my opinion.
yeah,
And just maybe he doesn't have the technique yet, maybe he doesn't have all the moves quite yet, but just his sheer size and athleticism gave him an edge out there, and I think he looked different than a
yeah.
Miles Murphy and Joseph Osai.
And we talked about all through the last couple months, right, with the production versus numbers debate, right? Or the numbers versus profile debate, right? Where it's, oh my God, he is a physical freak, but the numbers didn't show up. Well, the physical freak showed up on Thursday night, right? He made plays in the backfield, multiple pressures, had the tackle for loss. He looked too good to be running with the twos. That was the
Getting one reps
impression.
now.
Exactly. That was the impression that I got, and he's already getting reps with the ones. I think with him now, it's just about getting him in true NFL shape, right? With him joining late, he was in great shape. He was training, but the only way you can truly get into NFL shape is by playing and working with guys in the NFL. And he's doing that, right? And I think that's the next step for him. I think in Washington, he's going to play a lot, both with the ones and the twos. I think they're going to give him like a full game experience almost. I feel like that's the smart thing to do here is to just say, look, go out and prove to us why you should start. And again, they've done some really interesting things with Shamar Stewart as well already. They have moved him along that line. They've put him in a lot of different spots. They've put him in at three tech. They've put him on both sides of the line. They're going to give this guy opportunities. That's the biggest thing for me is they're going to give this guy chances to succeed and they are going to play him early and play him often. And I'm liking what I'm seeing at a number 97 early on in the tenure. I think he is doing what he needs to do to not only gain the trust of the coaching staff, but also kind of to just prove to a lot of different people, whether that's the fan base or to everybody in that building, that he's capable, right? He is more than capable of living up to that draft stock. And again, he did sour some tastes in some mouths with what happened.
Sure.
And again, the best way to build that back is by playing good football. And right now,
Yeah,
Shamar Stewart is doing that. So I'm
absolutely.
really excited about that. A couple other players that I thought played pretty well. Taj Brooks, I thought looked pretty good at running back two, running back three. I thought, again, kind of the same sort of vibe that I've had all throughout camp is that Taj Brooks is going to play, and he may well displace Shamaje Perine, maybe not early, but at some point throughout the season. And that's kind of the vibe I got. He got a lot of snaps early in this game. He really just played a lot, especially in the second half. The rushing stats aren't great. That's fine. It's not really entirely his fault, of course. I think again, the blocking reps that I saw out of him, very good. I thought he showed himself as a capable pass blocker. And again, the opportunity is there for Taj Brooks, in my opinion. So, do you think, how realistic is that, do you think, Aiden, that he could displace Samaje Perine at some point throughout the season?
Yeah, I think as the year goes on, it becomes more and more likely. I think starting out, we're going to see a heavy dose of Samaje Perine just from the standpoint that we kind of talked about last week. I think Perine, the veteran, is someone you can trust and you can lean
Yep.
on, and you don't have to worry about him at all. He's always going to know where he needs to be and what his assignment is. Like, he's good on that. Now, as the year progresses, I think we might see Taj Brooks sort of like creep in there a little bit more. I think that's the case with a lot of rookie running backs. It just takes time with them because there's a lot more to the game than just, I get the ball, I run straight, here we go.
Yeah.
There's a lot more that goes into it. So I'd say like, by, I don't want to put a timetable, by like week 13, week 14, if we see a
Yep.
lot of Josh Brooks, I would not be shocked at all.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that it might just be a case of, the future is now, right? Like, and just pulling a guy forward and understanding, when the right time to make that opportunity is. And maybe Taj Brooks does it earlier. There's no chance. And then maybe it's just Samaje Perine plays at a crazy high level, right? There's nothing that says that can't happen. Samaje played a little bit in that game. Again, Samaje's been in the league long enough where he really doesn't need
Yeah,
a
he's
ton of
good.
snaps. So he was running a little bit with the first team offense, didn't play a ton, didn't need to. Let's mention quickly just how good the first team offense looked. We don't need to dwell on it too much because we expected this, but Joe Burrow looks like the same Joe Burrow we saw at the end of last year. And I think that's the biggest thing for Bengals fans, right? Joe Burrow, as the Bengals have had, has had a habit of starting seasons maybe not quite as he would have liked. Obviously, he has a little bit of an excuse in 2023 with the calf injury that just lingered throughout the first half of that season. Last year you had both wide receivers in kind of funky spots. Jamar wasn't practicing and then kind of started practicing and then whatever, it was weird. And then T. Higgins got hurt the walkthrough before the game, which is just brutal because really a lot of the game plan was built around T because of how little Jamar had been in practice. Jamar played, didn't look like his normal self. The Bengals offense didn't look like their normal self, and they lose to the Patriots. So again, the thing with Joe Burrow is he's going to want to come out firing in week one, right? Against the Browns defense that, look, that's secondary. Yes, Denzel Ward is a great player, but behind him, Martin Emerson is hurt. Greg Newsome is Greg Newsome. They should be food for this Bengals wide receiver room, right?
I agree.
Jamar Chase and T. Higgins have both hit highlight clips on Greg Newsome recently. Yes, Denzel Ward is a very good corner. I would do it. I love Denzel Ward personally. He's one of my favorite non-Bengals, but he is one guy. The secondary is bad, plain and simple. I don't think there's a lot of Browns fans that would disagree with you, right? The front four would be a little bit of a concern, but right, if Joe Burrow's getting the ball out quick, like we know he can, the Bengals should be able to eat up this line. And that starts with Joe Burrow being at his normal processing speed, which boy did he look like in Philadelphia. 9 of 10, 123 yards, 2 touchdowns. Jamar Chase, I mean, he made it look easy. Had a beautiful toe tap catch along the sideline.
That
Had
touch
the
was good.
touchdown where he made Keely Ringo look like a middle schooler. T. Higgins did have a it was Burrow's probably his only bad throw of the day. It was a little bit
It was
behind
it was
T.
on
Higgins.
target.
It did hit T in the hands, but it was a very tough catch trying to contort his body. Did have a couple other catches. Tanner Hudson played a lot more with the starters, but also played later in the game. Had a couple of touchdowns, but had a touchdown with the starters. Noah Fant did not play. We'll probably see Noah Fant play a lot more in Washington. Neither did Mike Gesicki as well. So again, lots to be positive about with the Bengals offense. They looked really good, even though it was against backups, so you could only take it with so much, but
Yeah.
they look
My,
great.
my
Not
favorite part, yeah, my favorite part is after the game they asked Burrow about how he played, and he goes, I was average. Because you just know that one throw, it was the first throw of the game, and that it was on him. Like, it was behind him. It was an inaccurate throw, which we're not used to seeing for Joe Burrow. But he goes, yeah, I was average. But after that, he was 9 for 9 for 123 yards, 2 touchdowns. I think that's a little bit better. If that's
he's
great,
fine.
great, we're in a great spot. But
Yeah.
I think it's a little
And it
bit
all
better.
backs up what he said, right? Joe Burrow has said a lot over the last couple of weeks. I'm feeling the best I've ever felt in a camp. And he's proven it on field now. We're seeing it in practice every week where he's made great throw after great throw. And again, there's no excuses. Again, we've said this the last 3 weeks. There's just no excuses for them to start slow in Cleveland.
No, no,
Zero.
no.
They have absolutely none.
No. Can I give a quick shout out real quick before we
Please.
move on to topics? I want to give a quick shout out to Desmond Ritter, bro. He came in. Jake
Yeah,
Brown
he
did
played all
not look
right.
good, by the way. Jake Brown did not
No,
look good.
no.
He looked bad. So then Desmond Ritter walks in. He's like, QB2, maybe. I know Jake Browning's earned a lot of fanfare after what he did when Burrow went down, but Desmond Ritter went in there. He looked all right. 7 for 16, 91 yards. The touchdown was beautiful. He had a nice deep ball as well in that game. I just wanted to give a quick shout out to the Cincinnati guy. I mean, I think he looked really
Yeah.
solid.
I could give a shout out as well. How about Taven Bryan? Coming in off of the, just a free agent, was on the street a couple weeks ago, comes into the building and actually leads the NFL in pressures after preseason week one. Had, I think, 3 or 4 credited to him. Yeah, that's juice the Bengals need.
Yeah.
Brian's a former first rounder. Didn't really work out for him in either Jacksonville or in Cleveland. But now he's got a chance in a room that desperately needs it. And again, I'm gonna give another shout out because I just remembered this guy. Chris Jenkins also played out of his shoes. They need Chris Jenkins to play like he did in Philadelphia. He was great and he had a couple, I think he had a pressure as well, but he was great in the run game, which is where they need him to be dynamic. Um, those two guys playing well are really good signs for that front four.
And
They
Evan McPherson
need
hit a 50.
depth and they need those guys to be better.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, and Evan McPherson hit a 51 yarder, but
He did, and
oh,
McPherson was perfect, and that's
yeah,
good. Obviously, that'll make a lot of Bengals
that's
fans
all
be
Thursday.
positive for the next one. So we'll move on, I guess. 34-27 was the final score. Desmond Ridder did have, almost got it back on the late comeback. It was a good try, but he could not quite get it done. But now they're in Washington, going to take on the Commanders. Jaden Daniels' company. They were the surprise outfit of last season, made it to the NFC Championship game. Let's talk about what we expect to see and what we're looking to see in next week's matchup. It'll be at FedEx Field in Landover, Maryland. Just again, in terms of what we're looking for, there's not a lot that's probably going to change in terms of personnel, but let's quickly touch up on the injuries before we get to that. There are a couple guys coming back, a couple guys that are out. Aiden, bring us up to speed.
Yeah, I was gonna say the one of the biggest things, and this is a position that I don't think the Bengals can afford that big of an injury in. That's free safety. Geno Stone is dealing with a soft tissue injury. That's obviously a major cause for concern. Anytime you hear something like that, Zach Taylor said he's week to week, which also isn't great. So maybe he's back for week one. Who knows at this point? It's right around the corner. But then you look at that group and it's Dijon Anthony, Tyson Anderson, and Jordan Battle. Those are the three guys.
Unproven.
Those
Unproven
are
is the
three
word to
guys that you
describe it.
feel comfortable rolling out there. And that's just who you feel comfortable with. And so Battle has kind of earned, or I guess been the de facto, maybe not earned strong safety
I think
starter.
he's just about earned it. Like
Yeah.
just about.
Yeah.
Just
And
about.
so then you have Dijon Anthony and Tyson Anderson battling for that second safety spot.
Yeah.
Do you feel great about that? I don't know. Those are two,
Uh
again,
there's
who
a
have,
former All-Pro
yeah.
sitting. in the homeless shelter right
Yeah,
now.
I don't know if
He needs
that's
a
a
home.
move that the Bengals are really going to go out and do because it's the Bengals. So realistically, I don't think Justin Simmons is on the table as much as I'd want him to be. But we're going to learn a lot about the other two. I am pretty high on Tyson Anderson.
Yeah, one of the best special teamers in the NFL, by the way.
I think he can make an impact. Now, do you want him necessarily as your starting free safety? Probably not. So
Then
I hope.
again, who
How good was
knows,
Gino
right?
last year?
Not
So
great. Again,
that's
how low? I mean, he was, to be fair to Geno Stone, he was much better in the second half of the season.
yeah,
But like again, you know, those are concerns.
yeah.
This quarterback room is going to get a little bit healthier. That's a big thing. CT, as we mentioned earlier, CTB and Dax Hill both going to be back into the fold coming up over the next few days. They were both back in practice yesterday. Really more excited. I mean, we're glad to have CTB back, but it's really good to have Dax Hill back on the field after the ACL tear from last season that he suffered against Baltimore in week 5. Dax is a guy they need on the field early, and they need him on the field often.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think he's someone who can really help in the run game as well. He's physical like that, and he likes to play a little bit more in that box, kind of slot corner nickel sort of vibe. That's what he played last year. He's played all over the place, but I think
Yeah.
that's a spot that he really excels at. But another injury that again is this one was a little weird, and it happened yesterday. Jermaine Burton was not at practice. He was apparently reportedly in the building, but he's dealing with a non-disclosed injury. He's day to day, according to Dan Pitcher. But if
Hmm.
you listen to Dan Pitcher talk about this situation, it was you kind of got a different vibe, in my opinion. Maybe I'm looking into it a little bit too closely, but Pitcher sounded frustrated when he was talking about it. Now, I understand injuries are very frustrating. You want your guys out there, especially guys who
And Burton had he had a
need the
great punt
reps.
return against Philadelphia.
Yeah, especially the guys who need the reps. But it came off more of like a disappointed dad sort of vibe in the
Hmm.
answer, which isn't great for somebody who obviously has a very, very short leash in Jermaine Burton. So I hope the best. I hope it is you just tweak something and he's back the next day. But I don't know. I don't know how you took it, Ethan, but the answer just kind of seemed off to me.
Yeah, no, I agree. I watched the film. I saw it, and it was, it just kind of got that same vibe that you got with the disappointed dad. The like, the kid dipped his hand in the candy jar again, and it's, you hope it's not that, but and it could just be like I said, frustration that a guy isn't
Yeah.
healthy. Maybe it's not what we're thinking. Maybe it's, oh, he just didn't properly take care of himself after a game, right? Which is a very, could also be a very valid reason to be frustrated, but not for the reasons I think a lot of Bengals fans would instantly default to when you hear the name Jermaine Burton, when you consider what happened last year. So
Yeah.
again, we hope he's okay. He is a big part of this team if he can stay healthy and stay focused. But we'll see what happens with that. We're running out of time, so let's real quick jump into some quick keys for Washington. Give me one or two things you're looking for this week, Aiden.
I just want the defense to show any sort of signs of life. That is all I'm looking for. A splash play. I'm looking for maybe a stop. Is that too much to ask for? Maybe a punt. If I see a punt from Washington, from the first team defense, I'll feel pretty good about it. A turnover, I'll like do a backflip or something. I don't know. But I just need to see something. I need to see something that I can latch onto with this defense that makes me go, okay, this is what we can move with going forward. On the offensive side of the ball, I'm excited to see Noah Fant. That's pretty much it. He's been going through team drills. He wasn't going through team drills before, just more individual work, and now he's slowly starting to ramp up. It is a complicated offense and everything, and they're asking him to do a lot more than I think the standard tight end in the Bengals offense would normally do. I know James Rapine was saying he was out there doing like wheel routes and stuff, so different things for Noah Fant. So I'm
Again,
excited
it's
to see
a
him on the
it's a
field.
creative offense. I've said this before. I do not think Dan Pitcher is a member of the Bengals organization after this year, and it's not because he's not good. It's because I think somebody else is going to go snap him up and be their head coach. And we're both, I believe, big Dan Pitcher guys, and I think somebody would be getting a really good head coach. Should they end up hiring Dan Pitcher, I think he's a good. Not only is he a good, schemer and he's good with the football, but he's also, I think, a great person and a great guy to lead and figurehead an organization, a team. So For me, I'm looking at the rookies again. I want to see consistency again from Dylan Fairchild. I want to see Shamar Stewart get reps against ones. I would love to see him go up. I don't know what Washington's doing in terms of playing starters. I would love to see him get some reps against Laramie Tunsil, who is now in Washington, if that's
Kind
possible.
of
If Laramie
crazy.
Tunsil even plays, I don't know. He's been in the league long enough where he probably doesn't need to play. But I would love to see him get some reps against real starting linemen. I think that would be the big thing for me. I think on the offensive side, like you said, I'm very interested to see what Fant looks like early, how much he'll play, and then how much do the starters play? Might they play the whole first half? I think it's a
Yeah.
possibility. I think it's a possibility that they play the entire first half. So, again, looking for Burrow, looking for Chase and Higgins, just to continue what they did last week. Same stuff, right? Not super concerned. Just want to see them consistently. And then on the defensive side of the football, where they put the puzzle pieces at secondary, right? I think that's the big eyes for me. Again, I don't know if Jaden Daniels is playing, Terry McLaurin's still holding out there. They've got a whole bunch of their own issues in Washington, but I'm interested to see what CTB does, what Dax Hill does, what some of these lower level guys that struggled in Philadelphia, how will you respond after a poor performance, right? Josh Newton did not play well in Philadelphia. That's a guy the Bengals have been very high on. He'll be needing to bounce back. Same with DJ Turner. At the back end, Jordan Battle, right? Tyson Anderson, Dijon Anthony, those guys are now fighting for starting spots. So all of a sudden, that gets a lot more important for those guys, and it becomes a lot more valuable to play well in the preseason because, well, it's important not only for starting positions, but to try and shore up this Bengals defense a little bit in 2025. So we'll see how it goes. The Bengals will be in Washington. It'll be Monday night, so we'll have our show on Tuesday. We'll react to everything in Washington. Then the Bengals are next. They are on, I believe, Saturday of next weekend. They are against the Colts. Final game. They'll be at Paycor Stadium for their only preseason game at Paycor Stadium before they head to Cleveland for week number
It's crazy
one.
how
We are
close it is.
we are inching ever closer to Bengals football, and there are plenty of questions still to be discussed in that front office and beyond. But that'll do it for this edition of the Jungle Fever podcast. For Aiden Crowley, I'm Ethan Sargent saying so long. We'll see you next week after the Washington matchup. Have a great week, everybody.